Today, we're unpacking the truly fascinating compounding history of how a tiny, weak group of colonies transformed into a global superpower. When we look at the world today, it's super easy to assume things have just always been this way. But the reality? It's a pretty wild story of historic opportunity, relentless innovation, and some massive, dramatic shifts in global power. To really understand this journey, we have to start right here, back in 1776. At this point, America was literally just a small, fractured collection of colonies fighting the United Kingdom for independence. And honestly, it is hard to overstate just how incredibly vulnerable they were. This brand new nation was burdened with a super fragile, weak economy. They had absolutely no powerful military to speak of, and zero global influence. By all accounts, the odds were heavily stacked against them. Yet, in an astonishingly short period of time, we're talking less than 2 centuries, this struggling, vulnerable rebellion totally transformed into the dominant force on the planet. I mean, to go from essentially nothing to the most powerful nation on Earth in that kind of time frame, that is easily one of the most remarkable transformations in human history. So, the big question, how on earth did this happen? Let's dive right in and answer exactly how this massive snowball effect actually played out, because it didn't happen overnight and it definitely wasn't an accident. As you'll see, it was driven by this incredibly potent mix of westward expansion, booming industry, the frankly devastating impacts of global war, and just a relentless drive for innovation. Section 1. Birth of a Nation. Right out of the gate, what America lacked in built infrastructure, it completely made up for with sheer vast geography. As settlers pushed westward, they unlocked literally millions of acres of farmland, expansive forests, crucial river networks, and just massive deposits of coal, oil, and minerals. These abundant natural resources essentially became the ultimate American fuel. They laid the critical physical foundation for absolutely all of its future growth. Section 2. Fueling the industrial engine. So you can clearly see this momentum taking hold. First, you've got that westward expansion providing the space and the raw resources. Then, step 2, railroads are rapidly built, which suddenly connects these incredibly distant regions together for the very first time. And because of that newfound connectivity, step 3 naturally follows. Factories just begin springing up everywhere. New inventions fundamentally transform everyday life, and cities begin exploding in growth at a pace nobody had ever really seen before. Now, the really crucial piece of this era is how human capital collided with that industrial boom. You've got these famous entrepreneurs, guys like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller, building massive, unprecedented steel and oil empires. But here's the thing, they absolutely couldn't do it alone. At the exact same time, millions of immigrants were arriving on American shores seeking a better life. They brought crucial skills, they brought the heavy labor, fresh ideas, and deep ambition. This created this incredible dual benefit. Factories got the workers they desperately needed, and businesses suddenly had access to a massive, rapidly expanding consumer market. That synergy right there, that's exactly what propelled America to become one of the world's largest economies by the end of the 19th century. Section 3. The World War Turning Point. Okay, this is absolutely crucial. The global conflicts of the 20th century, particularly World War II, created this stark, undeniable contrast. Looking at the reality for Europe and Asia, you just see devastating destruction. Infrastructure, factories, entire cities just gone. But over in America, the mainland remained largely untouched by the physical destruction of the war. Because of that massive geographic advantage, American factories were able to run safely, around the clock, supplying weapons, ships, vehicles, and equipment on a scale the world had never seen. This quote captures the post-war reality perfectly. America was already producing. Think about it. After the war ended, many of the world's former leading powers were severely weakened. They were forced to spend all their time and all their resources just rebuilding their nations entirely from scratch. But the United States? It didn't have to rebuild. Its industrial machine was already running at peak capacity. And because of that stark difference, the U.S. instantly emerged as the unquestioned leading economic and military power in the world. Section 4. Cold War and Innovation. So World War II ends, and immediately a new dynamic takes hold, the Cold War. This was an intense, decades-long geopolitical rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. And they weren't just competing in military strength, they were aggressively competing in technology, in science, and in overall global influence. To outpace the Soviet Union, America was essentially forced to dump massive investments into deep research, scientific advancement, and breakneck technological innovation. And that fierce competition birthed the space race, right? It was this frantic push to conquer entirely new technological frontiers. The ultimate symbol of that whole technology-driven era came right here in 1969. The Apollo 11 moon landing wasn't just some cool scientific achievement, it was a massive global statement. It definitively, undeniably proved American technological leadership to the entire world. Section 5. The modern global superpower. Which brings us to today. America is now home to tech giants like Apple, Microsoft, and Google, companies that essentially drive the entire global internet and computer infrastructure. They literally transform the global economy every day. And that environment continues to suck in top talent from all around the world. But it's not just tech, right? This economic power is backed by the most powerful military alliances in human history, like NATO, and this incredibly influential, inescapable web of cultural exports. We're talking movies, music, and corporate brands that have spread to literally every corner of the globe. It's the whole package, solidifying a superpower status that is deeply economic, military, and cultural. So, just zooming out and tracing this remarkable journey, we go from 1776, a struggling collection of colonies, through the massive industrial boom of the 1800s. We arrive at 1945, where geographic luck and sheer industrial might made it the post-WW II leader. And then we push all the way to 1969 and beyond, where relentless innovation just completely cemented its status. It's a compounding journey, beautifully fueled by natural resources, immigration, historic opportunity, and a massive technological drive. And that brings us to the final fascinating question I really want to leave you with today. We've just seen exactly how quickly power can shift over a couple of centuries. So looking at the global landscape right now, can America maintain this incredible, completely unmatched position in the decades ahead? Or is another historic power shift already on the horizon, getting ready to rise up and challenge it? That's definitely something to think about.